Welcome to the Consulting Leaders Podcast, where we talk about the business of consulting. Whether you're looking to grow your practice or learn from the stories of leaders in consulting, you're in the right place. I'm your host, Guillaume Jouvencel, ex-PwC and co-founder of GHA Marketing. Join me as I interview the best consultants in their niche. Let's get on with the show. Peter, welcome to Consulting Leaders. Happy to
Thank
have
you
you.
for having me.
Let's jump straight into it. What initially drew you into leadership and cross-cultural work?
Sure. I think like many people, the journey starts with a junior career, and I think I had a career. I went through the junior ranks, the postgraduate, middle management, into director level positions, and then ultimately equity director status in business. So I think, like a lot of people, just grew into it. Some people take to it more than others. Liked it, and then it kind of it manifested from there. I think in terms of the intercultural side of what I do on the consulting, I think a lot of that come from working with a more global focus. Like many people, I like to travel, and I think you go places, and when you're in your teens and your 20s and you're just experiencing a lot of that surface level culture, when you travel, you really enjoy it, and then you start thinking, well, how can I make this pay for itself? How can I spend more time in America or France or Australia? I'm going to need to work, and so you start developing those skills.
So how do you leverage the skills today to solve problem? Like what is the problem that you help solving?
Yeah, sure. I think the field of interculturalism or intercultural trainers, coaches, it has a little bit of an identity crisis in the sense that some people think, okay, this is they know about culture in terms of music and style and fashion and food, languages, but then they forget there's this whole kind of below the surface cultural roots that make up a culture. And really how I see it is, if you can be rather dexterous in your approach to working across cultures, it's a massive financial and business advantage over people that cannot, especially in this interconnected world in which we live now.
I agree with that. What would be the outcome? And the reason I'm asking this is I see the problem statement, right, of like identity crisis of culture and culturalism at work, especially. What's the consequence of this, and what's the outcome of having that properly nailed down?
Sure. I think for me, is when I think of my own journey, and you work in your profession, you hone your craft, you become good at what you're doing, and then you work with a company or a group of people or someone from a different nationality, and you're like, do you know what, I didn't nail that, that didn't stick as well as I'd hoped. Why is that? I think the automatic reaction is to think, oh, they're not our type of customer, or I'm not their kind of person or vendor, where realistically the truth, that could be the truth, or it could be that how you're interpreting their information and how they're interpreting you are two different things. And can you work on that space between?
Who do you help with that? Like, who benefits the most from having that properly nailed down?
Sure. I think for me, it's, I think, especially as, someone originally from the UK, and, you then start looking outwardly for opportunities. And I think, in terms of when your domestic market, maybe, you feel like you're maximized, you've reached a growth ceiling, or you think, do you know what, I've got a product or a service that could be really good somewhere else, and you start that process of thinking, where can I go with this, then I think, that is when you get into this world of, okay, how do I, communicate, market that message, but then how do I communicate and market that message in the correct way, and then take that feedback from that market in the correct way. So I think I think that most of the people I help with this are very outwardly looking, people, either through necessity because they, need to grow, or just through an inquisitive mind, or constant learning, or, desire to be more of a global player or global citizen.
I like this. Can we refine a bit? Like, in what context? Like, is it a particular institution, a particular industry, a particular niche that you're helping solve this problem for?
Yeah, sure. So I think, we part of what we do, the Interchange Institute, is a non-profit registered in Boston. We help people, effectively get into intercultural training. That's a big part of what we do. A lot of those people we help then go on to help, everything from people expatriating to countries, or refugees, or volunteer workers, or other non-profit workers, healthcare workers, in that sort of sector. Me personally, when when I'm not doing the more philanthropic side of things, work more with financial institutions, large construction companies, material suppliers, built environment, hospitality, those kind of sectors that are looking to either expand or place senior management, move them from maybe one sector to another, maybe send them, abroad. Small business owners is increasing, I'm seeing more and more people that are either solopreneurs or smaller, kind of family offices. They don't have big relocation businesses. They are doing a lot of this, on their own. And I think, there's the whole part of, matching the correct market. Where will people thrive the best? I think a lot of what I do is actually, solving that problem of, why am I not performing as well as I know I can perform in this new place? I thought all my problems were going to be solved by moving our business to Dubai, or setting up the New York office. And you know what? I just feel like I'm not succeeding. Why is that? And working through those problems. And I think that's where most of I think where the growth has come in the last kind of 24 months.
Oh, I'm gonna double down on this, because for someone who've lived this, so when I was at PwC, I moved to Belgium, which, when you think about it, is just very close, you might think, culturally and geographically, at least, from France, and it is. But there are some nuances, there are some differences, and there are some things that you need to. The fact that it's a trilingual country, for instance, like that comes with consequences on the culture and things that you need to adapt to. Hussam, my co-founder, moved to Japan for an expat assignment before we started our company. Same thing, right? It's actually, everybody is talking about how different Japanese culture is, and you're like, yeah, that's gonna be fine. I'm gonna adapt, and then you arrive in there, and it's like flabbergasting. So, a very interesting problem that you're solving here. What's your take on this? When you think of a product, of a service, right, which I understand is not really the case here because it's a non-for-profit, but I'm still interested to get your take on that. When you think about launching a product or a service, you always try to identify, okay, is this a painkiller, or is this a vitamin, right? Are you going to serve people in pain who need your services, or are you going to sell a nice to have? How big of a problem is it when you talk to those institutions, when you talk to the hospitality sector, when you talk to the big construction companies? How big of a pain point is it for their leadership to be like, oh yeah, sure, like the low-paid associates that we're going to send in other countries need to have proper onboarding on how to fit into a culture? Like, tell me more about that.
Yeah, and I think that's an area where I think maybe the sector has pivoted. I think historically, people, larger organizations there was more of a budget there for, okay, we've invested in this senior leadership individual. We are moving them to, spearhead or work on a project for us. We want them to succeed. We want them to settle in, and we want their family to be happy. And I think, so a lot of time will be spent with, again, as we all can attest, even if you're thriving, if your spouse, partner, children, if you're taking them with you, don't, then that at home is going to impact how successful you are at work. So it's looking at all these things as a complete package. It's I think how can I say, I think looking at working with companies now, I think they understand. I would always say, look, you've spent all this money training someone, you've spent recruiting them. If they don't work out, and you're spending hundreds of thousands of dollars, euros, pounds, yen on this person a year, that is an expensive failure purely because they did not settle in their new host country. So actually spending money this end to help them through that process is the best money you will ever spend. The chances of them succeeding, the chances of them actually delivering on the things you put them there to do are exponentially higher.
It's so funny because when we look at the Interchange Institute website page, we see that you guys worked with the biggest: MIT, US Army, Audience Views, Accenture, AstraZeneca, Boston University, Disney. Mm-hmm. Why do you think it is such a problem for bigger companies?
I think more people. I think especially when you look at pharmaceuticals or petrochemicals or specialist products.
Yeah,
it's difficult to locally recruit. I mean, a lot of times the people with the knowledge are, from a geographical region of your business. And when you are expanding, when you are opening a new office, or when you are launching a new product, you need to move the expertise to the market, not the other way around. I think other sectors, especially as we get a more, educated global workforce, especially if you do business in English, you are, very lucky in the sense you've got a huge pool of people that, can communicate in that language.
Usually sits you ahead.
And it's easy, and you can locally recruit, place people, and you don't need to move as many people. I think when you think of, even the likes of Disney, I mean, there's not that many animators, professional animators around the globe, especially ones that are trained in, how they wish to, produce a movie, the technology they use, etc. So they are, they are quite mobile, and a lot of the back office as well. So,
how do this type of people find you? Like, how do you get the likes of Disney, AstraZeneca, Lego, MIT to find you specifically? I mean, your experience, because you've been with the Interchange Institute for 3-4 years, something like this, if I'm correct.
Yeah, I mean, we took over. I mean, the institute has been running. It was originally created by a lovely person, Dr. Ann Copeland, in the 90s. She stepped down as executive director, in just prior to COVID, so 2019, and then a newer wave of senior leadership come into the organization then. So of course you inherit some good kind of good brand awareness from its longevity, but also I think I'm trying to get better. It's like everything in life is learning. I'm trying to get better at putting myself out there on shows like yours, feature pieces, social media, etc. We do have a presence. We do have YouTube. We do have socials. But ultimately, I am much more a connections person. So the vast majority of our work comes from referral. And I give this as advice to a lot of my customers. I mean, I think as as a marketing professional, if your product or service suits a social platform or short form content or adverts, then great. If you're in the business of more relationship, non-tangible, hard to explain, the ROI or the benefits of what you're doing, I would always lean into the relationship side of things, because you can get much more of the message across, and you can get people on board that way. So most of it is referral.
And so I like this a lot. Allow me to dig a bit further down into this. What do you use and leverage to grow those connections, to foster those relationships, to grow your network? How do you actively work on that?
Yeah, I think it's, for me, my corporate career, I was more on the side of business development, pre-construction, account management, that kind of thing. So I think personally, I just lean more towards that relationship, kind of part. I think, just doing things with intention. I travel a lot. I sit in a lot of meetings, outside of the nonprofit. I also have businesses as an investor. And, I think even when you talk to, people that do seed funding or venture capitalists, a lot of those people are working across multiple deals. So if I work with them, with either one of my clients that are, working with a funder, we get to know each other. They see the benefits of what we're doing, and then they give me the call. They say, Pete, we loved working with you on project X. That works great. They're going wonderful. We've now acquired, or we think we've made an investment in Y. Can you talk to these people for us? Just see if there's something you can do, or you think your services are needed. I have that chat, and it's, a lot of the times there is sometimes I go back to them and say, look, this is not a culture problem. This is not a business coaching problem. This is a different problem. Maybe, look at this route. But and likewise, I think, people, once you kind of get going, and I think I always like the adage of, if people invite you to a party and you keep saying no, eventually they stop inviting you. So I think throughout life, if I get an opportunity to speak at either a conference, or be that paid or free, or meet someone when I'm in town, or connect with someone, I will always, if I can, go out my way just to put some time in my day to make those new connections. And also, it's how you sell yourself. It's we all meet people in our day-to-day life. Not everything has to be like a hard sell. This is I'm Peter Arnold. This is what I do. What can I come in and book a thing? A lot of it is just, just making people aware of what you do, and when the time is right, hey, feel free to reach out to me for, just ask me a question. I might be able to help you. I might not, or I might know someone that can. And so I like to think I keep myself very approachable.
Like that a lot. So there is a lot of golden nuggets in here that I want to double down on, also for the B2B coaches and consultants listening to us. So referrals, relationships are the core of any B2B coaching and consulting business, really. This is also how most people start. Now, you can set up an acquisition channel that will help you scale that growth, but you can grow steadily if you do a good job and you get referred to other people. Now, when people really want to double down on this model, there are a few things that they can do. I think you nailed it, Peter. Going to conferences and speaking engagements is a very good, in your niche, obviously, is a very good way to foster those relationships, create new ones, and build momentum. Now, it's good to have a tool or a way to stay in touch with those people. A podcast is a very good way to do this. You can also create new relationships thanks to this, but not only, like anything that will get you in the right rooms. I recently discovered the amazing world of networking events when I was in the US. That is a thing, has pros and cons, obviously, but actively, when someone really wants to rely only on referrals, activating certain tools and channels that will allow you to put that on steroid while staying genuine, I think is super important, will really help you grow your business thanks to referrals. In your case, Peter, we're talking about big accounts, right? Like those are pretty serious companies that you're working with. Tell us a bit more about how you move from that initial conversation, that initial chat, that initial connection to, hey guys, there might be something we can do here, and crossing the finish line, SOW, letter of engagement. Particularly interested into this because it's a non-profit as well. So how do you execute on a sales motion for a non-profit?
Yeah, sure. You know, I think, like everything, the power of the follow-up. So, you know, summarizing, what I always believe is, if you can give the decision, if you can give the people you're connected with something to actually put in front of the decision makers within the business, then your success rate is higher. So I think in terms of either putting that together it does not have to be super complicated, but putting thought into following up that discussion with a proposal, and putting guidelines in there. I think a lot of people are sometimes with consulting scared to talk about cost or budget ranges or timelines, because they feel they don't want to tie themselves into a period of time or a small piece of work when it could be a longer relationship. But I would argue that actually, sorry, the dog was just moving there. I would argue that you know, that kind of actually just letting people frame that initial piece of work, scope it. So, okay, we've heard what you had to say. We're very interested in this. We think it might work. You're going to come in, you're going to work with us for 1 week, 2 weeks, a month. Our exposure to this is somewhere between, let's pick a number, 10 and 20,000. That's great. And then it's that whole kind of then just getting started, getting in there, delivering on what you said you're going to deliver. And if you succeed, as you will, because you know what you're doing and you can genuinely bring value, then the relationship will grow from there. I think I often think a lot of people, I think in life in general or in businesses, are very good. They come into their element when there's something tangible to critique. So if it's a one pager, it's something it's written, they will come back and say, I like this, I don't like that, that's too expensive, what can we do for this? At least you're engaging. I think with a lot of kind of people, if you go back and it's just a blank page, there's not many people out there that are happy to proceed or comfortable with a non-scoped project. So I would always say, make the connection, kind of pitch your idea, and then put that in a tangible 1-2 page document with an action plan of how you're going to then start that and get moving. And then follow up. Tell
me more about those follow-ups. How do you build a sequence of follow-ups that will get the right attention and traction from the client without feeling too much? Do you keep on adding value? Do you just typically chase? How do you build a follow-up sequence that actually gets into the room with the Disneys, the AstraZeneca, the MIT of this world?
Yeah. I think in terms of, as I know you're very good at doing this, notes of the conversation you've had, the problems they've had. My follow-ups in general will always link back to what they engaged initially to do. So it shows you are following their trajectory. It's not a generic, oh, I sent you a, said we last spoke, blah, blah, blah. It's like, okay, we spoke, we talked about a timeline. That timeline is now, kind of past. I know you had this coming up. How is that working for you? How is your team performing, etc., etc.? Would love to talk to you. Yeah. And then likewise, when I'm then working with other organizations that I feel have got similar problems or learning cases, I will reach out again and say, look, I've just, we just finished a very interesting piece with, a different university. These are some outcomes. These might be things that, I don't know if this is how your project's going. And just, I think the more people realize you're actually thinking about them and it's not just, kind of a templated, automated out of HubSpot or whatever platform you use, method to sort of like, kind of communicate, you will eventually, kind of get there, because people are intrinsically curious. I do think people are nice. I don't think people deliberately wish to ghost you, or I think people are busy. I think people sometimes think, I like what you're offering, but now's not the right time. I'm too busy. I'm da 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 da. It's, I think there's getting back to this interpreting the signs. Just because it's, not happening now does not mean it will not happen in the future. And you have got to put yourself placed so when the time is right, you are ready.
Okay, another section with lots of golden nuggets of knowledge here. So a few things I loved. Personalization. And there are some AI tools that can allow you to do that for sure, and note takers and summary points, but like that little personal touch that, will like show that you did the extra step. Something that we've implemented recently and that we help some of our clients do is a quick 20-30 seconds video film on the 9:16 format with the phone, sent to the phone number or on WhatsApp to the prospect. Murders it. Like, okay, he literally took the time out of his day to record the 30 seconds video to tell me that he was looking forward to our next catch up whatsoever. So personalization, super important.
Yeah.
I think the thing that you mentioned around showing them that you think about them is great. There is also a lot about staying top of mind. Like if let's call it every other day or every week, you have something in your email box from a certain person that you're in the process of building something with, you're staying top of mind. Super, super valuable.
Yep.
Some of the follow-ups that we like to do, especially in like high-level consulting, are just value follow-ups, like case studies, emails helping them solve a specific problem in their niche. So it's like, hey, I want you to get as much value as possible, regardless of whether we work together or not. But hey, if you implement this and you get results, imagine how much results you're going to get working with us. And then there are other things that you can put in place to have proper follow-ups besides of emails. So we talked about this little video. Having a podcast conversation is a great one. Actually, it's one of our clients who was doing this. So we're like, that's genius. So follow-ups, I love your methodology, and that makes a lot of sense. How do you retain, Peter? The reason I'm asking this is the money in consulting is in farming. Hunting is super important because that's how you get new business. But how do you farm? How do you keep on delivering value for the guest, for the client, but also for you?
Yeah. Well, interesting. I mean, again, this is where the kind of the cultural competence, cultural intelligence, cultural dexterity, whatever term you wish to use, also comes into play in terms of, different cultures are how they approach the, again, for anyone that's worked in a lot of cultures around kind of, the UAE or the Saudi or the Emirates, kind of North Africa, into Asia. I mean, there are a lot more relationship-based decisions. I mean, I think you've got to be comfortable with the idea that they are going to, they want to build some sort of rapport, really feel like they know you before they make a business decision. So you become comfortable again with that whole kind of not taking it personally, that maybe the sale is taking what you deem in your culture as a long time, or the relationship or kind of is taking a long time to form. That is, part of just knowing who you're working with. Obviously, North America, decisions get made so much faster. I mean, I think for people that are first starting to work in the US in general, I always say, look, what will surprise you is just the sheer pace of how fast decisions and actions can be taken here. I've not worked anywhere on the planet where things can move as fast as they do here. And likewise, it's like, hence the reason, you've got to stay being visible, top of funnel, following up. You see a lot of those, kind of things around kind of texting, out of hours working, because the time is so important. I've had the conversation. I said I can help. Here's the solution. Here I am. Here's my contact details. Here's my calendar. Whereas you do that, you take that approach when you're working in, say, Colombia, Venezuela. It's like that's just too much. That is too. You're coming on too strong. It's like, what do you expect me to do with this information right now? We are very much early in the dance of working out if we are going to work with each other. So there's that part, just working out who you're working with, how long that's going to take. And then retention is a, for me, it's a human kind of connection thing. I think if people like working with you, they will find a reason to keep working with you. The amount of people I work with that obviously take me with them when they transfer and go and work to another organization, because they enjoy the process, they get value out of it, and there's some other intangibles. I mean, life is easier if you enjoy the people you spend your time with. Some people see it as a little bit of a controversial anti-competition kind of statement, but it's true. I think humans will always be drawn to working and engaging with people that they enjoy working with. So, I think I always, kind of try to, kind of accept feedback, or sit and listen and think, okay, has this been a rewarding process for my, for my customer in this process? Because I think if it has been an enjoyable and rewarding process, the chances of them being retained and doing something with me again later are so much higher. And also, I think being, talk the great word, being authentic, authenticity, you do get to a point with clients, customers, accounts where, your work is done, and it becomes, do you then want to be, and it's that hard decision of then, do I just try to remain in the ether, maybe doing work slightly outside of the scope of what I was brought here to do or help with, in order to keep that regular kind of paycheck coming through? And I get the temptation. I get the temptation. But ultimately, I think if you can be disciplined in saying, I think this is great. I think we've got to where, when we sat down 18 months ago, we have got to where we wanted to get to. Now, do you want to go somewhere else, or do you want to do something? And yes, no, in which case I'd love to work on that. If not, let's take a, this has run this period of time. Let's talk again next time. And I think people ultimately respect that, because I think, especially when you're paying external fees, it's like, people, it doesn't take much for someone to, especially if there's a change of management within an organization, of like, oh my God, why have we been paying this business all these months for services? Obviously, they're not needed. It's like, well, if you can show breaks, pauses, different project titles, different outcomes, then it becomes a totally different relationship.
Like how you went back a lot into people and culture, and you're right. the speed of decision making. Oh my God, how right you are on how much faster it is in the US. And it's not a good or a bad thing. Well, certain people could see it as a good or a bad thing, but it makes everything move so much faster. And when you look at how the US is for now dominating when it comes to tech and entrepreneurship, you understand why. And you're there as well, also coming from the old continent, Peter. So we have that in common. But boy, do I agree with you. What's the next big thing for you and for the nonprofit? Like what's challenging you right now that you feel when you're gonna kind of unlock, you're gonna, grow the nonprofit even bigger?
Sure. I'm very interested in, I think actually the we've offered training courses and certification for decades, of course. And then I think, kind of various kind of lockdown restrictions in the early 2020s drew a lot of then other organizations into the kind of like online educational space, and it become very, very cluttered. And all of a sudden we had a lot more competition in areas than we ever had before overnight from people kind of, kind of doing things. And I think, time goes on, and I think the good trainers, the good courses, the good certifications, they have stuck and others have fallen away. And I think when I think of our training methods and products, I think, there's core, it's like going to university. There's core elements of what they teach you that are kind of timeless, and they make the core curriculum, and they're great. And then, of course, there's the element of updating. But historically, of course, you'd come to us, we train you, you get your toolkit, you get all your, kind of forms, templates, methods, etc. And I think the interesting thing where we're at now is looking at what I'm really interested in is how we can then provide kind of core tools and materials for then individuals to go away and, with the wonderful power of the various AI platforms and other methods out there, personalize that information into their own content, apps, engagement tools, games, gamification of how we learn, that sort of thing. That transference of it being all the responsibility of the educator to make all of your tools for you, to actually, here is a really kind of core set of information, maybe through, an LM kind of model of, here we put all this information into this LM for you. Now you go away and tailor that into getting back to the personalization, your personal tools for how you work as a consultant, how you work. And I think that area is quite fascinating. So I think certainly the next couple of years is all going to be increased personalization, increased gamification, the pace of which you have to update information, images, content will only get more. And I think the people that can then harness the technology to help them do that will have the advantage. So that's where we're spending a lot of our time at the moment.
Absolutely love that. Peter Arnold, ladies and gentlemen. Peter, if people want to find out more about you, the nonprofit, where should they go?
Like everything, I think the best place to start is always a website, Interchange Institute.org, a little bit of a long website there. And we of course have some other things and that you can watch and join in on. And we have a twice a month culture chat, which is almost like a listen and learn. It's an engaging call. We have a guest speaker. We go off into breakout rooms. We talk about something. We come back, talk about what we've learned. So I always invite people to come along to a culture chat. I think that's a good place to start. And I wish everyone well in their journey. And if anything else, as speaking of someone that's made that jump of, kind of moving away from what they know, working with people that are different from them. Yeah. Sure, there are challenges, but the rewards are 10x of doing it. It will make you, in my opinion, a more rounded, happier person. And I think it will make your career a more rewarding and longer serving career for you. And I think it will give you those skills as we go into this world of where everything, the pace of change is only going to get faster. The answer is for us all to become more comfortable with change. Otherwise, I think you're setting yourself up for a life of disappointment. So yeah, get out there, talk to some people, try some new things. You won't regret it.
We'll put all the links in the description, and I can say one thing for sure, Peter, is that you've gained at least 1 follower on LinkedIn from this interview. Me, I just added you. Peter, thank you so much for coming on Consulting Leaders.
Great.
Thanks for joining us on this episode of the Consulting Leaders podcast. We hope you learned valuable lessons on how to grow your practice and take your business to the next level. Make sure to subscribe and leave us a review wherever you're listening to this show so you never miss an episode. To apply and be a guest on the show, click the link in the description. See you next time.